Maneva na say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there osia dem yopo.
Show abusan for your mama kwaba the mobile PENDREAM TV so me pacho ba pe but money so subscribe to the channel na like video no na share so eto ma afoforo so enya bi enhwe TV3 eye Johnie Hughes e de eye enroa de e course so wo media fo a wo Ghana ha entem ene omanpeni John Dramani Mahama e de abetu ya wa frefre media fo mpenifo bebre ni omo atwetwe nkomo afa nroa de e course between media fo no ene omanpeni John Dramani Mahama na me pese ye kɔ ne ekutie ensem pa media for no ne omo so adwene efa enkomo a enro a course na hwe se aso ekoyi anase enkoyi ana papa na Ghana for ye bodawure se yento abama no nsan beje akunya no no nsisi oba aman no eman no aso odifata se ye de akunya no sama na yenkotie enkomo a course na mu ankasa mo mfa mani hu abusia ye se de waye bida ene ejini di enye ne oba abeso ahwe nye waso stie numu bida atwi omno ne ejini di enye meta sabiu ono oba abeso ahwe entimesra mo yenko TV3 na 3FM so na yenkutie eye enkomo no sedie journalist mpanyifo lawyer for ebinimu adwene efa nkomo a ekoso no so high PENDREAM TV misel like video no o hwe nyina na wo kire wadwen ewo eye platform no ase yanko ne nkuti emra sisia
2.7. Yesterday, the NDC's flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, met the press. I'm sure it's something that the press themselves have yearned for since 2019, what was the last one that President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had. I was there. Yeah. All five of us who were there on behalf of Media General were never allowed to ask our questions. I was there with Sinamwa, with Bright Nanamfo, with Bright Asempa, Alfred Nana Krofio Kansi. Yeah, all the five of us.
You couldn't ask her questions.
And guess what? I was seated at the front. So me,
but we na oka eye omampanyin ma Akufo-Addo de 2019 omampanyin Akufo-Addo de bi oyeye or say nipa 5 from Media General am from Mubia
president that lectured that me that.
What question had you prepared on the day?
So at the time I had started the ambulance campaign. You know, the ambulance had been brought in and parked at the State House.
Right.
So I had gone to host the Ghana's Most Beautiful Finals. Then I was the host until 2021. And then I saw them. So I was curious because they had already been branded. I was wondering why they were there and they hadn't been moved. So I checked with two of the guys and said, oh, these are ambulances that are ready for, you know, we just had to do a bit of retrofitting. So I took upon myself like 6 whole months. So when we had, I think it was on 20th December 2019, yes. You know, when we had that, I mean, it was an obvious question everybody knew I was going to ask.
Okay.
I raised my hand till forever.
You were never
I was
called
seated
upon.
next to Afeomoni. Afeomoni was called. I was seated in between Afeomoni and Okatichi Afrifa. Okatichi was called to ask his question. Afeomoni was called to ask his question. I was never called throughout the period. When we finished, could you upon come and say, which I like these things, you know, it happens. I said, me next time if you call me, I won't come. That's why I didn't attend John Mahama's one. And I've never attended any of those soirees again. Yeah, they killed my vim.
Oh.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that say, oh, Johnny, we didn't see you at this event. We didn't see you at that event. We thought you would be representing at this event. We didn't want to see that. I get asked if I go somewhere and it's like, where's Johnny?
But if I can sit here and get you to change the chairs at the National Theatre and bring air conditioners and change the washrooms and change the carpets, why should I come and do press conference? I won't come.
Fair.
Yeah. But Nanaya Abrefo is here. She is the host of the morning show on Onuya 95.1 FM. You're doing Opa. It's here for Anapai.
Slow down.
Premo has not to. Now, I come to you a bit. Let's talk to Samson Ladiayin. He's a private legal practitioner. He's also the host of Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM. He was there yesterday at the Meet the Press with John Dramani Mahama, the NDC's flag bearer. Counsel, good morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Morning, Johnnie.
Great. Counsel, I'll begin this with you and ask you what your general impressions was about the event yesterday and the engagement with the former president and now the NDC's flag bearer. What would you say?
For the update, the event looked very well organized. We obeyed the instructions to be seated by 7:30, and it appeared to have started a bit on time, just a little bit late, but I got there ahead of time, about some 15 minutes to time, and by the time I got there, I realized that President John Mahama was already in the building, and almost all the officials that I saw seated were already seated. So on the side of the optics, it looks very well organized, well attended, and the graphics, as far as production is concerned, remember, I pay attention to that as well. Looked really good. His responses, he looked very well composed, appeared to have a deep knowledge, reasonably, on almost every subject we raised, and had an idea that one could appreciate as far as his responses were concerned. But, John, you and I know that it's difficult to believe and trust the politicians because of the trust deficit they have created in us over a very long period.
That's right.
Otherwise, for the things that he had to say, the responses he had to give, if they were to be followed through, I'm sure we will not be encountering the problems that we encounter. We had similar situations with Nana Akufo-Addo before he became president.
That's right.
And he will sweep you off your feet with the answers, the passion with which he spoke to, the questions that, we threw at him. But the delivery has been completely disastrous. So basically that would be but I think that I was not exactly happy about the fact that a good number of journalists had questions,
right,
and yet they could not, have opportunity to ask their questions. I asked my question of him.
Right.
I got a partial answer. Because there were the time constraint. You could feel it yourself, the time constraint. But it is what it is. I don't know.
I see. Now, Samson, let me ask you this. Were you satisfied with the kinds of questions that colleague journalists fielded yesterday at the former president's encounter?
I think the questions were good. The questions on Galamsey by Kafui, Galamsey is an existential threat. I have followed you on your bikes, and many times you are equally concerned about these matters. Questions about what to do with the OSP from Umaru Sanda, what to do with, the National Cathedral, the cathedral that began on a foundation of lies. From the very start, the lies were told in such a way that that's part of what creates the trust deficit for the politician. So if you recall, when it was first announced that judges were going to be relocated from their bungalows that were at this very pace,
right,
I had the exclusive privilege of some judges confiding in me that they were being rushed to move away when they were not actually ready. There were judges' bungalows there that were less than 5 years old.
Correct.
In fact, there were new constructions there that were not complete, and it was taxpayers' money that were being used to build these 6-bedroom bungalows. And all of a sudden, we got a story that, they were not being rushed. The bungalows were dilapidated, they were old, and it was a good idea to actually remove them and build a new one for them. All lies. And they were being caught one point to the next. They were lying. And who was saying we are not spending anything. The president repeated that often. We are not spending a dime. Then later we were told that, oh, there will be seed money. The Attorney General went to the Supreme Court in defense of Kabila's suits and told the court that the state was not going to spend money in the project. I mean, it went into the record of the Supreme Court. They were literally lied to about what, the funding arrangement was. Right. And here we are with all of this, So, and look, if you check, and I don't want to focus on this, but if you check, because that would be a wrong way to approach your question. If you check, you'll find that in the end, if it were to be built, the cost of the building will be about 4 times because of the relocation that has to be done. We're going to have to spend in excess of about another $50 million to build the embassy that was collapsed. Build that embassy for them.
Right.
And all the other things that have to be done. So those were very good questions, except that, for example, the National Cathedral, I didn't get a complete answer from him. He said, well, first thing, if he won power, he would have an audit to check who has done the wrong thing, the issues of corruption in that project. He will get to know that first, and then determine what next to do. I expect him to have a clear answer. That is prime land. That is a major project that has already started.
Right.
And started against all the criticism, all the opposition by citizens. So he must have a clear path to it. On Galamsey, his answer, you may love the answer, but there is a problem within that answer. There's an internal difficulty,
which is
to say that the people who have been arrested,
right,
for as long as they are the hangers on, they will get an amnesty because your interest is the kingpin. Look, what is it going to be? Is it going to be a plea bargain of sorts? We need to get the details so that these hangers on will now disclose for their freedom. They will disclose the big fishes and say, I was sent by this to do this job. It was this minister. It was this appointee who gave me the job there, or I was working for them. In that case, it will be a good plea bargain because the law allows that for the purposes of getting a better, greater result, you can let go of some people who are equally guilty,
right,
and use them, to get as a decoy, sort of, to get more of those who are doing wrong. So I can say that the questions that were fielded were relevant. The answers were largely good. You could hear the experience. You could tell he was effortless in responding to some of the issues that he responded to. When it came to issues that I am more particularly interested in, human rights and the legal questions, I was surprised at his knowledge, not being a lawyer.
Right.
Even some of the terminology, appropriate terminologies to use. How
you lawyer ne kasa no. Lawyer Samson Ayenini on ne kasa no. Was say ye bisa no ono ne particular question ko bisa no famra ho. Any omampini Mahama kwan of fa so answer any terms bi e use ye ewo ne answers no grandma ono kwa obohu say papa yi adwen no efiri hifa like obi a onye lawyer onye lawyer na ultimi kasa ansem we eche so we deep what you say tie ni ye.
I was surprised human rights and the legal questions. I was surprised at his knowledge, not being a lawyer.
Right.
Even some of the terminology, appropriate terminologies to use, how he has such a grasp over those matters. The appointment of attempt to appoint 5 new judges to expand the panel of Supreme Court judges to 20.
Right.
You know, his responses, well, you could tell. You could tell that he clearly had a grasp of the issue.
Great.
Translating them into
actions,
implementable, actionable things when, if he does win, is the next thing to watch. And you would have heard my major concern. My major concern was where you hear CSO leaders before he was voted out of office. Johnie, I met CSO leaders who are non-partisan, who are very unequivocal, that don't give the NDC an extension beyond 8 years. Because you need to give the NPP the opportunity to come and fight the corruption, because in this country, government will not prosecute their own. And it sounded good. I'm hearing the same CSO leaders today, and you'll be shocked the crowd of people I'm talking about. They are non-partisan.
Right.
They only have the interest of Ghana at heart. They say, don't give the NPP another extra
number of years.
Give the opportunity to the opposition so they can prosecute and stop the corruption, because there'll be too much of corruption. But my concern is that that's a difficult democracy. The Constitution says in its preamble and at the very beginning and in various portions of the Constitution that sovereignty, that is the ultimate power of the state,
resides in the people.
Resides in the people.
Right.
And the sovereignty that they exercise as political leaders, they exercise it for and on behalf and for the welfare of the people. So the people must be heard, like Kenyans have been heard. He kept using the word reset. There's going to be a reset. There's going to be a reset. And on the slides that were put up, reset was in bold text. I said, that's good. That understanding must not translate to wait for 4 years to change the government if they are not working. It should be like has happened in Kenya. 2 years into the administration of Ruto, the youth take the street and they say, you have too many CEOs, like we have in CSOs, state-owned enterprises, which are filled with politicians. You have, what do you call them? As you have here, the three deputies, unnecessary, just to make room for people to get jobs.
Right.
That's what you have done for your appointees.
I see.
Or people within your party. They insisted that scrap it. 47 of those SOEs are dissolved because the people went on the street.
I see.
The pay and salaries and offices for first ladies and second ladies have been scrapped, not because a court had to give a ruling as in here in Ghana. It is because the people went on the street.
Right.
We don't leave it to 5 people sitting as judges to determine for all of us, the majority, what is good for us, because their decision may not be as good as we want. 50% of his advisors and appointees, all of them have lost their jobs today as we speak because the youth went on the street.
I see.
Munti asema wakanu wase Kenya hono nyoma ekoso hono bia na ekoso Ghana ha but omo sorry ya omo ni breye no ene aban no san nyoma enkwasea sabiu decisions bia o take ye ne ho ade ade na epira amanfo na omo complain a onti no this time or dimirika ena oyi firi hono ena o chese Ghana ha sa na tie enti no yan o kakasa kwon say ye ti krum ha na judges be 5 bi na o makotena ase na o mafa decision a epira o man ne say o man ne eto ne ya kans ya nsagwe damri fam na yi hu ne ye ho kasa kwa ena o ka kire.
The democracy must be. It must not be a democracy that we vote and wait for 4 years. This government has not been listening. Look at the things you and I have been talking about. They are the things that the people want action on. The president is tone deaf. He just can't hear anybody. We look, CDB surveys said people want a non-partisan district assembly elections, asking for the mayors and the DCEs. CDB surveys have said over 78% of Ghanaians, that is how they want it. The president said, I don't want it that way. Because of that, let's not have the referendum to determine whether there should be election of DCEs or not. You can't get away with this in Kenya. That's what kind of democracy I want. The demonstration people try to have. Look at how repressive the police have been. And I'm in court defending too many of the journalists who have had to be named, who have suffered at the hands of the police, and so on and so forth. And I wanted to highlight the issue of Oliver Barker-Vormawor because we don't know what we do with our brilliant kids in this country. This is a bright guy. How can he organize a coup on Facebook? What nonsense is that? And he's standing prosecution, and we are watching. So I asked the former president, what has he done about that? What will he do about it if he wins? He only answered what he will do. He doesn't answer what he has done. China sponsored terrorism by the military. Have you heard the president on this? 8 people were killed in the elections 2020. What have you heard? No investigation, nothing. What kind of a democracy is this?
Something. My final question to you is that the former president mentioned that he has a renewed commitment to fight corruption and that he has dared the government that if he is guilty, he should be tried. In 1 minute, you give me your answer. Can he be trusted?
That's the point. But that is his word. And you and I must record this word. The way you do it in the most brilliant fashion. Record it. And then we'll play it back to him as frequently as possible if it becomes necessary.
Thank you. Samson Ladia Yenini, private legal practitioner, host of Newsfile and Joy 99.7. He was there yesterday. Our own Nanaya Brefo of Yensempa on Onya FM is here. Nanaya, good morning.
Morning.
I'd had to drag you out of the studio, forgive me. But you were there yesterday.
Yes.
What were your impressions? You have had so many of these media encounters. How different or was this one?
Well, he said it was the first of its kind and it will not be the last. It would continue. I think, as Samson said, it was organized well. If you didn't have a card or if you were not invited, including his own people, you cannot just enter because it was for the press. He had some members of NEC being there to support him. Running mate was also there. The questions were the questions that people have been talking about. Free SHS is in Parliament now. No, the bill hasn't gone to Parliament, but they are discussing it so that they could, take a bill like that, a policy that needs some kind of bill that will support what government is doing now. And we asked about it. He said yes, he supports any bill that would help our educational system. But he believes that as the bill goes to Parliament, then stakeholders will come in. He would get the chance. He's heard, he hasn't seen, but he's heard that if the bill goes to Parliament, the BEC, WASI, possibility of scrapping the BEC is not a bad idea, but stakeholders should have a take in this particular bill. So he spoke about that. About the exchange rate, we asked that question.
That's right.
He answered it.
Were you satisfied with the answers?
Yes, and I side with Samson. Saying is different from doing. Because all the answers, all the questions we asked, he seemed to have answers that people want to hear. Like the levies, levy, COVID levy, when you go to the port and stuff, what he thinks he can do. He would take some of those levies out. He believes some are illegal, and that is what we've been talking about. So whether he'll be able to do it is something we all live.
He mentioned that he was going to run the country with 60 ministers and deputies. Possible?
Why not? Why not? It is possible.
We haven't had that before.
Yes, but we can do it. I mean, for me, I have issues with the fact
he can do that.
We have ministers, 3 deputy ministers, and most of the time, I don't know what they themselves don't know what they do. Yes, if you talk to them, they will tell you, oh, I have to be assigned here or there. So they don't have specific jobs.
So for example, if you take the Ministry of Agric, there's a Agric minister. Then there are 3 deputies. So I can imagine one is for crops, one is for animal husbandry, and the other one is for exports and rural development.
And then we have another ministry for fisheries.
Yes.
We used to have both together.
We are special.
Especially what? Naming apparatchiks to become ministers and creating jobs.
But the journalists,
Ministers of State.
I mean, Samson mentioned, for example, that there were a lot more journalists who had questions but couldn't,
The time, I think he gave us 2 hours.
Okay.
He extended a bit. In his quest to answer all of it, I mean, I think he took some of our time to answer some of the questions, which was not bad. The answers given were okay.
Right.
Probably that's what caused that. That others couldn't ask their questions.
Were you satisfied with the answer he gave you to your question?
To some extent. I didn't ask the question, but I would have asked what he would do in his first 100 days.
Right.
I mean,
you wanted to hear that.
I wanted to hear where we are now, what he's done. He said he's coming in with experience. So with that experience, with the situation we find ourselves, our economic challenges, I mean, what he will do in his first 100 days.
But you didn't get the opportunity to ask that question. Would you want another media encounter?
Yes, he actually promised he will do another one. I don't know when.
Would you impress upon the other political parties' flag
I think
bearers
so,
to do,
including I think His Excellency Nanado owes us media people. He does that as and when, not meeting all of us, just as he did. When he goes to a function, especially political rally or function, you ask question, he would answer you. But I think he should be able to open his doors.
No, forget
come and sit. It's important.
No, it won't happen.
We need to know.
It won't happen.
We need to ask him the things he said he would do.
It won't happen.
Why he's not been able to do it? Why?
It won't happen. You know, the last one we had was in 2019.
Yeah.
And
he has to.
It won't happen.
It wasn't this bad 2019.
Right.
I mean, and the fact that it's only COVID and Ukraine that has brought us this far. I don't believe that is the only reason. And there are things, and we are asking for, cuts in expenditure. So we want to know why he's not been able to do it.
Or Samson says he doesn't listen. I think so too. That he doesn't listen.
At the moment.
He doesn't listen.
If you ask, why don't you do reshuffle, they will tell you others are looking for jobs. I think that's not a good enough answer to tell Ghanaians. When others came in, they were doing reshuffling. Even if it doesn't do much, it will do something a little. Because when you keep somebody there for a long time, they get too used to a particular space, too familiar with people they work with, and it gives room for corruption. You understand? Yeah, so I think he should be able to, and the others should be able to organize things like this, like Dr. Baumia. I think he did something, but not...
Yes, he did something
on the quiet.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like this. We didn't get the chance to ask a lot of questions.
Well, and I wanted to find out, did it come up at any point from the journalist, a suggestion that former president and Dr. Baumia should have a face-off, if you will, or with some other candidates? Did it come up? Did anybody ask if he was ready to take the stage and have a debate? Because a lot of people have been clamoring for that, like you see in other jurisdictions. In the US, for example, that big debate happens quite often.
And we saw what happened with Biden.
We saw what happened with Biden, and there have been calls for that to be replicated here so that we can see how the other candidates also face off with these questions.
So Komla Kluche, who is the man on the beat with John Mahama from our 3 newsroom, says that first 100 days, John Mahama's answer was that he would have a Sinchi-like dialogue where he would open the books for everybody to come and see, and then we can chart the way forward from there. So that's what John Dramani Mahama said. Komla has his eyes and ears, all around John Mahama because he's been assigned to him.
He also asked another question was important.
We'll raise him on the phone line. We'll raise Komla on the phone line. But in closing thoughts, so we can engage Pakwesi Asare, who's joining us on the phone line.
I think it was good. It's good, and they should do another soon for some of us who didn't get the opportunity to ask questions.
Great.
To also ask questions. And as Samson said, we'll jot everything down. If he gets the opportunity to come back,
we'll record and play back.
We'll play back.
I hear you. Nanaya Brifo is the host of Yensempa on the 95.1 FM. Pakwesi Asare heads our business desk here at Media General. He joins us on the phone line. Pakwesi, good morning.
Good morning, Johnny.
Great to hear you from you this morning. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Still recovering from last night. It ended late into the night.
Right. Now, you tell me, last night you fielded a question. Were you satisfied with the answer?
Absolutely, Johnny. I did ask the former president about the IA's call for the extension of the contract of the Bank of Ghana governor beyond the tenure of the president, and also the question about the cabinet reshuffle, which led to the ousting of former finance minister Ken Ofori-Atta. And I think that, all in all, President Mahama's response was satisfactory. I cannot, help but, admit my admiration for the former president. He showed a lot of knowledge. He showed that he had broad understanding of governance and economic issues. He had an idea of almost every question that was being asked him. Indeed, the first question about the IA's call, I did state, even in asking that question, that it appears that's what the status quo is.
Right.
That the Bank of Ghana governor has 2 4-year terms, which is conterminous with the tenure of the president. And so, when Kufuor came into government in 2000, he appointed, I think it was Paul Akwa then was the governor of the Bank of Ghana. And his tenure elapsed that of President Mills when President Mills came into power. And they wanted to push him out. The NDC wanted to push him out then. But he went to court and challenged, the government. And he managed to stay in power to continue his tenure as governor of the Bank of Ghana. Then we also had, in John Mahama's time, Dr. Nasiru Isahaku. He also was supposed to finish his tenure when, in 2016, Nadu came into power. But according to John Mahama, and as we already saw, Nasiru Isahaku could not complete his tenure as Bank of Ghana governor. And we heard from H.E. Mahama that he was pushed out only for Dr. Addison to come in. And so Dr. Addison, as we have it now, appears to have done his first 4-year term,
right,
conterminous with the tenure of the President Akufo-Addo, and is doing his second 4-year term.
Right.
So if indeed we are allowed to go by the laws, that's what the law actually says, that he has 2 4-year terms conterminous with the tenure of the President. But for the little hiccups that we had when President Akufo-Addo came into power in 2016. But it is also instructive to note that he went further to suggest that, listen, why would he extend the contract of a governor of the Bank of Ghana who has superintended over such humongous losses? Why would he extend the contract of a Bank of Ghana governor who seems to have printed so much cash into the system illegally? So you can clearly hear from H.E. Mahama that he's not very excited about the performance of Dr. Addison, and if he has a chance to renew or terminate the contract of Dr. Addison, he gladly will terminate it. The
24-hour economy question came up yesterday. You are with the business community every now and then. Did the answer now settle the debate in the public domain? Because we have had different schools of thought that we don't understand the 24-hour economy, it's too confusing. The person proposing it is not able to explain it well. What will be its essence for us as a country, building network, foreign direct investment, all of that. Were you again satisfied with the answer to the 24-hour economy question?
I honestly, Johnny, I think this is probably one of the clearest explanations I've had in a long time. And I must admit that I have been confused myself, with the kind of explanations coming in from, communicators of the NDC regarding the 24-hour economy and what exactly it means. Gladly yesterday, we had the proponent of this policy try to break it down to our understanding. And I think largely he tried to do that. But I think it's going to require a lot, because he also admits that, listen, he's had people say, oh, we already practice a 24-hour economy. It's a matter of demand.
He admits that, yes, we do. But this is the first time a government is going to legislate this, in terms of how it works, the mechanisms going to be put in place, the incentives they're going to give to businesses to operate this. Otherwise, I think that it is something that is done in advanced economies. He talked about even the sports stadium and the fact that we are unable to play football in the night, all because we don't have the infrastructure to do these kind of things. And once he comes into power, he's going to ensure that the right infrastructure is in place. We are able to have sports in the night, and obviously people who sell paraphernalia and food and other things, at the sports stadium, it's going to ensure that businesses go on in the night.
Okay.
He talked about farming. The fact that even at the port, the large volumes of goods that come into the country even at night, to ensure that there's 24-hour service at the ports.
Okay.
And the fact that there's also the need for security. If you're going to operate a 24-hour economy, you need security. And so that also calls into question the need to employ a lot more security staff, policemen, and all that. So I think that largely he has attempted an explanation which sounds convincing to a certain extent. He also makes mention that they're going to launch their manifesto in August next month. And so hopefully a lot more of the details will come out when the manifesto is launched.
Great. Pakwesi Asare, thank you very much. Head of Business here at Media General. We're grateful that you could join us here. And on to Kemini Nyemini Amano. She is the host of News Central, also with the political desk here at Media General. Kemini, good morning. Sorry to wake you up this early.
Good morning. Good morning. Not at all. Good morning.
Great. Yesterday you were at the presidential encounter. Let me begin with you. You've been concerned about accountability issues. John Mahama promises to hold political appointees accountable. Can he be trusted?
It's interesting you asked that question, because that was my question to him. The question I wasn't, given the opportunity to ask. Because, Johnny, here's the thing. 90%, maybe even more, of the things that John Dramani Mahama spoke about yesterday at the event we have heard before. So he spoke to the minds of the people. I was hoping that he'll speak to the hearts of the people. Because the thing is that over the world we are facing a leadership morality crisis. All right? In our case, we've seen the disillusionment among a large cross-section of the Ghanaian people. What has that done? It has increased the distrust and mistrust between the governed and government. And so for an opportunity like this, I wasn't expecting a lot of regurgitation of the things that we have covered already.
Right.
I was looking for the opportunity for him to speak to the hearts of the people. Why the Mahama coming into the 2024 elections is different from the Mahama that left office in 2016. I haven't heard enough of that. Do you understand? I wanted to hear whether or not he's offering us a different kind of leadership, because he needs to reflect on the imperfections of his own administration. And I'd like to hear more of that. It doesn't matter if he's gone into a 2020 election. The point is that 2020 election didn't end the way he wanted, which means that the Ghanaian people, despite being disillusioned by the current administration, still want more. Is he going to give us that more? Can we trust him to give us that more? Or is it going to be another case of a mismatch between what is ordered and what we actually get? And I don't think that he dealt with that a lot at all.
This second encounter that John Mahama has promised, and between now and then, do you hope that anything could change? Because it does appear that largely the NDC is counting on the failings of this government to come back to power. In terms of answering the questions and the messaging, because all of this was to make sure that they're improving upon the messaging. Did it strike you that the messaging is actually being couched properly in terms of demeanor, appearance, composure, the organization, etc.?
I couldn't take that from the NDC presidential candidate. He's a good communicator. So I think in terms of posturing, in terms of poise, in terms of giving the message, that was it was well done, right? But the kind of message I thought would speak to the heart of the people didn't really come. And also, let's note that I think he did his best not to center his message on berating the current administration, and that was a good thing. He tried to tell us what he thinks he would do and what he thinks he would do better. And again, I say we've heard those things before. It only spoke to the minds of the people, and perhaps, in the future, the message should be couched in a way that it speaks to the heart of the young people who do not think that this government has lived up to expectations. Otherwise, it's just another presidential candidate making promises they cannot trust.
Kamini, I'll let you go, but before then, again, we'll ask. Some are suggesting that, look, these things that are being said by John Mahama, I will run the country with 60 ministers, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, I'll do that. We need to pack those videos and audios and play them back to John Mahama, maybe within the first year or maybe at an appropriate time, so that it serves as a reminder. Samson Ladiaini was on the phone a while ago. He insisted that the president doesn't listen. Do you get the sense that John Mahama will listen?
Has John Mahama listened in the past? Comparatively, I'd say yes. I can only assume now that John Mahama, if or when given the nod, will listen even better than before. And I'll make an example, right? We've always made the point about the 24-hour economy and how we do not understand, or he's not explaining himself well, which is true. But last night, he tried as much as possible to go beyond the country will be working round the clock. However, while that is a sign that, John Dramani Mahama is listening to the people, is trying his best to carry his message across to the people, is this the point about infrastructure? Mr. Mahama, tell us how you're going to do this, really. It shouldn't have been another case of wait for my manifesto in August. That was an opportunity to tell us the kind of infrastructure you want to use. Does the infrastructure exist? Do you plan to build it? Based on the math you have done, how long is this going to take? Because he has only 4 years. And this is a man who has said in the past that 4 years is not enough to do the things that you have to do. And this is not a continuum of his government. This will be a continuum of an MPP government, so that whatever you may have started has not had the opportunity to grow. And so if you are promising 24-hour economy over a 4-year tenure, then you should be giving us more, telling us the infrastructure, telling us the timelines associated with that, because you should have done some research into this. Otherwise, it's just another promise that we are struggling to fit onto the Ghanaian people.
Kamini Amano, she's a host of Hot Issues on TV3, also News Central on TV3, and also with our political desk. Kamini, thank you very much indeed for spending your morning with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We go now to Komla Kluche. Komla Kluche is the lead reporter with John Dramani Mahama. Komla, thank you very much indeed for your time. Before you step into Parliament to do some behind-the-scenes work, tell us what your first impressions were of the event yesterday.
Well, for me, I think this has been long overdue. We should have had, this probably should have been about the second encounter, just about the time he had made his mind to go for his last non-renewable term. We should have had this encounter, subjected himself to more scrutiny, but better late than never. We have seen from his side that yes, he has done this, not necessarily from the other side though, that they may be doing this anytime soon. But largely, I think that opening himself up has not been a new thing. We are aware. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not too sure the number of times, but I mean, being in office, I've covered a lot of these encounters with him. And so this, in addition, it's just still a feather in his cap. But we are hoping to have a lot more of this. But as the campaign gets heated and the pressure on him mounts, I still want to believe that he will find space, keep to his word and give the media the opportunity to ask him the questions or subject him to the strict proof and scrutiny that he desires of leadership in the country. And so largely, I think that, yes, it's a good call. There's still a lot more that he has to do. And all that. But, I mean, in terms of journalists, you can never be satisfied with the time frame given. I recall yesterday we were all supposed to be seated by 7:40, and he walked in just about 2 minutes to 8, and that's how the arrangement was done. At 8 o'clock, went live on air, and he spoke, for just a little over some 20 minutes, and the rest was left for the questions. I believe that in the responses he gave, some of them in wanting to explain himself to be understood the more. For instance, if you look at the question on, let's say, the free SHS, he had to give even background and cite examples of how the president now then, lauded him for committing himself to free SHS. All those things took a lot of time. But largely, I think that it is a good call. It is a good thing that he has done. We should see more of this, not just from him, but from anybody who wants to lead the country to be subjected, to this. And I would want to say that the handlers have equally done quite a good job to be able to allow journalists to ask. The questions were limited to one. Right. But if you are smart at it, for instance, I was a bit smart to have asked 2 questions. How I ended up asking, I mean, I didn't even know myself, but I planned to ask 2 questions. I would have asked a follow-up though, but that opportunity was not there. So largely, I think that he's done quite well.
Kamala, you've been with the former president crisscrossing the country various points. He's been telling or selling his message out there to the people. It does appear that he already has the manifesto done and dusted. Why do we have to wait until August before we get this manifesto out? Do we know why? Did he explain?
I was quite surprised myself because I was thinking it was going to come this July. I was a bit taken aback hearing in August though, but understandably so from the handlers. My information is to the effect that he's still doing a lot of consultation. If you look at it lately, he's not been going around too much, with that campaign mode thing. He's been still consulting with people. The Building Ghana Together tour had ended, but he's doing a lot more inner consultation. And if you go to his office, for instance, today, it is not open to the media, but as I'm speaking now, I just made a cross-check in his itinerary, meeting a lot of people, stakeholders, is still getting to fine-tune it. It's not as though he wants the manifesto, to be put out there as just few people who have sat and just in their head decided that this is what, the manifesto should be like. But he has indicated, and I hope that opportunity comes, where, he says whatever the people have asked him to do, they should just flip the pages in his manifesto, and then they should judge him by it. And whatever he's doing would be what the people themselves want him to do. And it would not be just what he would tax, or he probably would have taxed some other people to sit in just a room full of air conditioning to just do. And so we can only hope that this opportunity will come for us to be able to gauge him, and then we judge him by what the people demanded, whether he found space in the manifesto, and how best he would be able to deliver on that. And so, yes, I think that it's not too late though, but it would have equally been good knowing that, well, by August, he should have been on the road. But I can tell you that, look, running campaigns is not an easy thing, especially financial, looking at financing.
Great.
It is still a lot. I'm sure they're trying to put their own strategies together. And they know exactly what they're doing. We can only watch and see and tell the story the way it is.
Kamla Kluche, thank you very much, parliamentary correspondent, a lead reporter with ex-President John Dramani Mahama, and also with the political and legal desk here. Thank you very much indeed for your time. We're grateful. And that's Kamla Kluche right there. A bit of a 24-hour economy, and then we'll take your thoughts, Helen. Would you have wished to be there yesterday?
Absolutely.
What would have been your question?
I think just as I posed to Nanaya, whether or not former President Mahama would be open to some type of debate, maybe not even just with the NPP, but other presidential candidates, and sit around and debate ideas with them. I would have been curious to know if he's open to that. I think if we push hard enough, we might just see it happen.
Okay, might just see it happen.
I understand your frustration and your disillusionment. Many of you are feeling very frustrated. I can relate to the recent cynicism and massive mistrust you have in our body politics because the current government has been undeserving of your trust. The challenges of today might seem insurmountable, but I urge you to look beyond the present and dream with me of a reset Ghana. The Ghana we all want, where your talents and hard work will determine your success. I promise a Ghana where you are not sidelined, but at the forefront of change, where you can live happy lives and still achieve your optimum potential. This is not just a promise, it's a commitment. I will reset the economy and Ghana will be open for business for 24 hours a day. Leadership is about vision, and the 24-hour economy is the vision to create decent and well-paying jobs. When I talk about the 24-hour economy, we need to understand the underlying vision behind that policy. The 24-hour economy is the means to an end, and the end is putting Ghana on a solid foundation for accelerated growth and development. We need to attain the growth rhythm that will turn our country into a developed economy and eliminate the abject levels of poverty we are witnessing today. An economy that will manufacture many of its needs, including food and beverages, drugs, clothing, and more, such that we can address the exchange rate volatilities due to needless imports. The world is moving very fast. We need to keep up with this new rhythm. So first, think of the 24-hour economy as an accelerator, the best accelerator or catalyst we could possibly have. A 24-hour economy will increase the production and distribution of goods and services and accelerate the economic exchanges between people and companies. And with that, we will start growing at an unprecedented pace while providing decent jobs for our young people. As I've said, leadership is about vision, and I stand by it. But leadership is also about caring. It's about giving people genuine, solid hope. And this is what the 24-hour economy is really about. And let me explain further. The 24-hour economy is a solid way to replace imports with homegrown production of goods, and thus create a solid base for a vibrant Ghanaian industry. In many instances, we don't import goods because they are better than what we produce. We import them because nobody produces them here in Ghana in the first place, or because our local production is insufficient. Therefore, the stimulus packages for companies wanting to participate in the 24-hour economy will convince businesses, and I'm sure of it, to start producing import substitutes. And do you know why? Because the market for such products already exists. If the market did not exist, we will not be importing to satisfy demand. 92.7. And so through the 24-hour economy, businesses will be incentivized to start producing for this market. It is the simplest way to start growing sustainably. And when this begins to happen, Imagine the number of new jobs that will be created. And here's another thing about the 24-hour economy. It will boost exports. Many Ghanaian companies still will start looking for foreign partners to develop their businesses to take advantage of the new opportunities available to them via this policy. Indeed, thanks to the African Continental Free Trade Area, these partnerships will open new foreign markets to Ghanaian companies. And goods produced in Ghana will then be exported to other parts of our continent, to Asia, to Europe, or North America, using the connections of these foreign partners that we have had. And as I've said before, I will personally chair an accelerated exports development program that will identify and promote exports in the manufacturing, agricultural products, textiles, food and beverages, pharmaceuticals, and the extractive sectors. It is important to understand that the 24-hour economy will generate a network of foreign markets for Ghanaian entrepreneurs and will transform Ghana into an export-led economy.
The best in the morning is on 92.7 Sunrise on.
I'm Mahama. Yesterday, 24-hour economy explained. Are there more questions? I don't know if you have any more questions.
Yo, abusia for aha ena yede dwumade no ebesi. Said ye omampenyi John Dramani Mahama ene media for a ewo Ghana ha nyina kodi nhyiamu atwetwe nkomo ma ho kwan ma mu bisa no. Ensem biara omopese omubisa no. Ho review ena media for na nkasa ede eba ene se watete ensemi na chese Ghana for atumi endorse omampenyi John Dramani Mahama. So utie nkomo no say the ekona you could feel say enye say they don't like udum so omunyina gitum say omampenyi Mahama oye communicator okasa o adwene no cause o hwe questions a sabio obegina ho no mutumi bisa no pa ni emu aya wode mo na echese nipa no onimde wasua ade adwuma na ye de hye ne nsa no wa ankoda so oti adwuma na se so ati ase utie asema Samson lawyer Samson ayenini ono ena oye joy news for program yi utie ensama okanya ekire se ono kwa no eye question obisa na no onim se question no ebia na omampenyi Mahama enye lawyer ntino ke ebia obetumi atoto afoma na so be toto apaso ewo saa question anu yi no so no so ono kwa no eye no nwawa. He was shocked. Yes, he was shocked. Eye no nwawa say umuaya no de man no we deep and now hear terms now o use law terms bia o use na kire say papa no wasua ade o. What I say, yeah, you see, amambu enye just metabrofo there be enye metabrofo amambu upese uye ubia uye omampenyi a you should be ubia unim the issues like the ordinary problems are the ordinary Ghanaian and the ordinary citizen. Like you should know at least every sector of the economy, every sector of the country should be at the tip of your fingers. I also wouldn't be fine. If for nothing at all, like you should have at least over 40-something% knowledge about every sector in the country. I go for my opinion, what the new economy or some media economy, economist. An economist. Who didn't kura anything a year or some media engineer. Who didn't kura anything law or some media mania lawyer. Who didn't kura see or some media mania sports and what sports question a bisano any papa in Samoa or answer ye a far sports on. Sadiq Adams ekubisano sports question be. Ti papa no Samoa o kaye kire say papa no omampenyi Mahama dey don go there and na media for you can say in fact Gidie no and I den kakra because Omanpenyini Akufo-Addo de omonsa si fom ko tie nsem Omanpenyini Akufo-Addo be kan in opposition a ija tumi mu edema na ne odi abi baby adui eno na ama Mahama promises ana ne nsam a oka no eye omo den se omegi adibato omu hu se papa no onim de na wakasa so that what you say me no me meet me catch media for no say mama mfa Mahama entoto sabio Akufo-Addo no na enim krom ha Akufo-Addo wasn't the smart person. Akufo-Addo a man for the package no de mai Akufo-Addo was not a smart person. Ye na hwe IA debate ni bi, and everybody who watched the IA and what we nim na watchro at the ato comment section na say amame and IEA debate utie sa IEA debate na enye obi na be catch say like Omanpenyini was on top. Omanpenyini Mahama was on top of the of his issues, of the issues. He was on top. Now what the answers. What you say? The answers are no deliver. On into amanyo samuno abusia enye saa keke o enye dedi hu ene makujina simpie so na me yobe na me di atrosem ni debi nya atrosem ni ntientem ni me kabro fa kese na mum eye se wo sheda enim de wo ka ade na yedi ahye wonsa no se e agric ministry a unim nyoma ekoso agric ko unim the problems and at least unim some solutions of is all the to on mebeboa e ban health a unim problems ekoso the health sector e bit me yi nsam akeka wo ho unim the causes are create agency problems the mo na afi solutions be a bit me provide who a ban like offense environment, like every sector of the environment, like county, the president has to have, knowledge about it. And no, and not Mahama Ekutachen, ne other colleagues. How do I say? And no, Nancy Omanpenyini, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, Omanpenyini Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia Kokumasiya, or kwa veli no who to party for party for keke. Question na bisa no oba bi di ko bisa no hwe problem e kofa bae okodruk sunyane na obi kwa say students o mbisa no question hwe animgu asesam a e kofa bae a student bi bisa na say mo say alawa up to now me ma ko school 2 years ni me ndi alawa bia hwe send how embarrassed that the man Bawumia was. I didn't try. Because like she doesn't sound convincing. What I say, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia on sound convincing. But Mahama die obi anim say papa no nim kasa, and that is a man that we should all support to become president. Ono bisa and also Ghana for we na support more be a president. A PENDREAM TV abusiafo. Make sure also subscribe to the channel. No one like video no edi amami. Or like we are now share to other platforms. So I'm afofro so answer to me aka. Who adwenchire bi afa to comment section no ase emaen. Adwenchire biara so asabi wo a office also person kire wo amanyo sam ho Ghana ha no. Your voice note na fa send PENDREAM TV. 0277128777 0277128777 about publishing our PENDREAM FM so ama Ghana for and so ati they also so work PENDREAM TV edamu yopo
PENDREAM TV now so far so good say open online portal e work Ghana nipa share nipa follow nipa comment here to my best of knowledge without any biases PENDREAM TV